So this is a quick overview of the timeline of events. As mentioned, about 5 minutes of this sharing now, about 1 hour and 15 minutes of the actual panel discussion and Q&A, and the last 5 minutes will be for closing and the feedback form. So because today here we have individuals out of ISPE as well, participants, so I just wanted to give an overview of what ISPE is. So ISPE as an entire organization was founded in 1980 from North America. And basically what our purpose is to look at scientific, technical, and regulatory advancements. So we have been here for quite a long time, and we keep on focusing on this because we know that the pharma industry is always changing. So we need to keep ourselves updated, and therefore that was the basis for the organization to be founded. Now, in addition to that, I just wish to bring your attention to the third point here. For those of you who are not ISPE members or new ISPE members, like let's say Joanne, then you all can consider that ISPE actually offers a lot of guidance documents, industry and regulatory resources, and a lot of continuing education and training, which I believe will aid either your educational time or in your careers as you progress into the working force. Recently, we also had a large-scale conference held at Suntec. So basically, there will be a few networking events just for interaction between different industry leaders in the pharma industry. So in particular, for Singapore's chapter, our mission of the Emerging Leaders Department is to connect like-minded emerging leaders to share knowledge on technical and soft skills so that they can deliver impactful work. And our vision is to empower each and every one of you here today with resources and opportunities so that they will become well-equipped to navigate the pharma industry and excel and work. So I think this last part of excelling at work clearly fits into our purpose of today's webinar. And this vision was actually one of the reasons why we thought of having this event, to go beyond just focusing on the pharma industry, but life skills in general. So here are just some examples of resources you will get access to if you are a member. And these are some more examples of events that we do have. If any of you wishes to know more about ISPEEL, or wishes to join as a member, or wishes to find out more about how you can contribute to help the team, which includes today here, there's one child here with us today, they can let us know, and then we'll liaise with you again. So today, I'm just very pleased to actually announce that we have 4 speakers. I'm sure you all saw them on the poster. So I just want to do a very quick introduction to the 4 speakers, but I'll leave it to them later on to do a more formal introduction because I think they know best about themselves. So just a quick overview from me. So first of all, we have Terry. So Terry is, I'm sure you all know, she's a business growth leader with extensive APAC experience, and she has managed a lot of businesses generating double-digit growth. And she has also worked in a Fortune 200 company in the APAC region, where she led as the managing director. And she was also a business unit head for European MNC at the ASEAN level. So she has also won a lot of awards, like Best Global Growth Awards, and she really believes in actually contributing back to the society and community. Currently, she is in a school for kids, who's also the sponsor for our event, whereby they have sponsored some power banks for participants who have signed up and also who have completed the feedback form, which will be shown at the end of the event. So thank you, Terry, for your time here. Thank you. Thank you. Secondly, we have Daniel. So Daniel is a CEO and coach at Kaiser Strategic. So he's really passionate about mentoring and coaching PMETs between the ages of 20 to 50, who wishes to maximize their strength and talent so that they can achieve success in the workplace. And basically, he really works with them to collaborate with them actually to create and accomplish that plan. And previously, he was actually a global director of an MNC where he led the commercial graduate program. So a fun fact is that Daniel is actually my coach, which was how I actually met him. And he has guided me a lot throughout, I think, 1 to 2 years, more than 1 to 2 years already. So I also wish to thank him personally for his time here today and for all his past experience. So thank you, Daniel. Thirdly, we have Yao Min. So Yao Min is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Che Corporate Advisory, and that is a boutique corporate advisory firm. He also leads the independent non-executive director of the UMS Holding Private Limited and also Raffles Infrastructure Holding Limited. So he has a lot of extensive positions and titles, which is testament to how accomplished he is in this field. And also between 2013 and 2015, he was the lead independent and non-executive director of Advanced SCT Limited. And also between 2019 and 2020, he was a non-executive director of an organization, Libra Group Limited. So we are really honored to have Yao Min here with us today. I got to know him through this event. So Yes, thank you for your time, Yao Min. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Alan. So Alan is the CEO and co-founder of the NDR Medical Technology, which is a medtech startup that develops surgical robotics, which is driven by AI and medical image processing to assist surgeons for minimally invasive surgery. He's also the chairman for an APEC Med startup committee, guiding and building the medtech ecosystem within Asia Pacific. So I understand that some of you here are interested in the startup scene. So if you have questions on that field, or if you wish to know more about the APEC Med startup committee, about what they do, how have they contributed to society, you can feel free to ask the questions to Alan later on. So that's for me. So I think now, before passing the time over to the four speakers by asking questions which you all have asked in the Google form in the past, I just wanted to just give some opening lines, about myself as well, so that you all know who is this person speaking, because I know that I don't know every one of you here today. So yeah, so I just want to share that currently I'm leading the Emerging Leaders chapter, and my background actually lies in pharmacy. But along the way, I realized that pharmacy, I do enjoy pharmacy. I do enjoy pharmacy in terms of giving back to the community. But I thought that sustainability, which is a field I'm currently in, basically I feel more connected to it, because it's something that it clearly benefits society, because whatever work we do in sustainability has a direct impact. It may not be seen the short term, but it can definitely be seen the long term. So I mean, this point I'm raising is not to just share about myself, but to show that all of you here, if you are studying, you may think that you are going to head to a certain path, but you never know. There may be certain changes in your life. There may be certain things you never knew and you newly discovered that makes you want to actually venture to something new. And many of us will have that feeling of being uncertainty about not knowing whether is that a risk worth taking or not. So I think that this webinar will be a perfect fit to actually answer those sorts of questions. And in particular, an example I can give, because we are ISPE, will be in the pharma industry. Pharma industry clearly has changed a lot, has rather evolved a lot to the COVID-19 profession. I mean, simply things such as healthcare professionals. Last time they all have to meet patients, correct? But now they can work through Zoom. There's a boom in telehealth services actually. And also there is now a lot of companies actually develop and focus more on digital and analytical capabilities in their own company, because they know that investing in AI, investing in technology is actually the future, because they can help make our work more efficient. They do not necessarily make people so-called lose their job in that sense, but I believe that they actually promote it. So I think that the pharma industry changing that much actually shows testament to how industries in general will change, has changed, and definitely will be different from how we expect it to be. So we all need to be equipped with a right set of skills, which can be in the form of leadership, continuous learning, or mentoring. That will be the trifecta of factors that actually ensure that we remain relevant in the future as well. So with that, I don't wish to take up any more time. So I just wish to pass on the time to our four speakers. And in the meantime, if any of you have any questions you wish to ask personally, feel free to share in the chat group, or you may also unmute yourself and just share. So to start off, maybe may I invite Terry to actually share about one of the most common questions that we receive is about leadership, and the fact that there are so many leadership frameworks out there. There's so many concepts of leadership. How can we know what can we actually suits us the best? Thank you.
Yes, hello everybody. Yes, this is Terry. Before I answer this question, maybe to add on to what Louis have said just now about my background, just want to share here. What do I do? I was invited many years back, 12 years ago, to speak at the APEC Women's Leaders Network, which was in Japan. And yes, what Louis have said about my background really is into performance leadership coaching right now. And yes, I'm a mom to 2 children. My better half is also working. And yes, I've gone through some certification for training, facilitation, and coaching. Okay, so the basis of my, the question just now was about the various learning frameworks and
Yes.
how does it work. So in my years of working experience, I've seen a fair share of leadership frameworks. Ultimately, it's the summation of all that I've attended comes down to one particular slide I'm going to share here. How many of us have heard of John C. Maxwell? Anybody? John C. Maxwell? Yes, thank you, Daniel. So who is he? In 2010, he was voted as the best coach in the world. Well, not really in the world, but American Management Association, AMA. And so there's several books that he does, and you can Google him. And if you go to YouTube, you will see quite a lot of his videos. It's free. This is his picture. I think it boils down to this, and the question is quite relevant. So which one works? Actually, it's no particular framework. Every one of them is equally good. I would say this visually, we look at it from ground up. Level 1, most leaders are probably here. You are given that role at work. The rights is given to you by default because of position. And people follow you here because they have to. They're part of the team, no choice. And probably the people that will not prefer to eat lunch with you sometimes, and maybe during lunchtime they scratch the wall and feel unhappy about work assignment and whatnot. Okay, it could be this kind of people. The 7, and most of us start at this rank, leadership. Okay, and as you progress along, people follow you because they want to. You as a leader, and this is based on relationship. Then, of course, ultimately is the pinnacle where people follow you because they respect you, because of who you are and the quality you have with you that's of benefit or that will groom and bring them to the next level in their career. Okay. This is in general the nutshell. I find that all the frameworks, John C. Maxwell sums it up the best. And if I had, now that I look back when I first started, I wish I knew this way before. And why is because how do we get ourselves to different levels? Because I think there were some other questions, Louis, that came along prior to today's session, and I can read them to you. For example, there was a question about can a leader have with a friendly disposition? How can a leader of that sort be assertive? And it actually answers through this framework. And I will run through some. How do you move? How do you succeed in level 1 or level 2? And typically people start at ground zero, level 1. Pinnacle leader would be, to take a very high level example, like PM Lee, okay, as a pinnacle leader where people follow him because of the quality he can bring on the table for the nation, okay? So quickly, level 1 for position, if you would like to move into this position and you're being appointed as a HOD or inherited a team, you really have to look into situational leadership, emotional intelligence, management skills. There's a lot of courses, WSQ that you can go for. I think for me, ultimately, it is about communication and being empathetic. Everybody has issues, and the leader is, you actually spend more time communicating than you do working the leader. And the combination changes as you move from ground level 1 to pinnacle leader. Pinnacle leader, you'll find that more than half the time in the workday, you are spending it communicating. I'm not going to go through every slide. I will just say that when you go to level 3, for example, you have to focus on being a servant leader. You have to lead by example and you serve your own team members. And that sometimes is thankless and even is tiring. So if the question would be something like, how do you then, if you have a friendly disposition, how do you get the people to follow you? Really is through a lot of empathy, communication, and the combination changes. So at level 1, maybe the communication part is about a third of the time. You work the other 2/3 of your time. And as you reach towards a pinnacle leader, it is inverse. You spend really most of your time communicating. Okay. So yeah, I'll just go to the pinnacle leader level 5, what John C. Maxwell said. And I'm not touting his course. If you want to go to, you can sign up for courses. I just Googled last night. There are NTUC Learning Hub. They have a lot of available courses for John C. Maxwell that you can go to, or you just go to YouTube and just type it. He has a lot of free videos that you can watch, and it's all related to 5 levels of leadership. I find that if I had known this in the beginning, it would have saved me a lot of time. Being a leader too has a lot to do with EQ, emotional quotient. So if it's about a situation, depending on the team member, the care, concern, the empathy, for the people to follow you, there must be some form of a buy-in and a need for them to follow you. So that will be how I sum it up. So level 5, you look at this, the level 5 people, leaders basically surround themselves with talented people. They cannot be insecure. They, in fact, will have to utilize the team members to work together so that 1 + 1 is equals to 3. It's easier said than done. So therefore, more time is spent with communication and sometimes just taking a back step and giving people the chance to try, get themselves wet into the, like jumping into the pool, giving them an opportunity to learn at a job and really making mistakes and accepting the mistakes and accepting the team member as they are. I hope that answers the question, Louis.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving that overview of the level 1 to level 5, and I think we all expired.
You would like that? Okay, sure. I'm happy to. In fact, I'm happy to share the slide. You can actually Google this. This is the framework. I can share it with you guys and feel free to distribute it. So I accredited John C. Maxwell. He didn't pay me at all. I just felt that for me, that would, if I had known this, I would have spent my leadership focus in a very different way when I first started out working. Yeah. I'll share this and please feel free to share with the participants.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So thank you, Terry, for the overview of level 1 to level 5 about servant leadership and about how the importance of communications actually evolves as you move up the so-called levels. So maybe on this note, maybe you can transit to, let's say, Ellen, because Ellen is in the startup, is in the medtech area, which is quite similar, quite relevant to the pharma industry, which is where most of the participants here are today from. So the question I think that one of the participants actually asked was about what are some is there any ideal in the first place, or what, and if so, what are some ideal leadership styles that should be demonstrated in the pharma industry? Something that maybe only the pharma or the medtech industry requires, that other industries like maybe oil and gas, for example, may not need that much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Louis, for giving me that question, and of course for Terry for sharing the 5 levels of leadership. It's something I wouldn't say it's new, but unfortunately or fortunately in the startup world, very early on, we kind of have to portray, or we have to go up the top level of the leadership skill immediately. I think if anyone is interested in the startup scene, bearing in mind that you never had a chance to start from level 1, you have to jump to level 5 immediately. And in today's time and age, because of while we were working with millennials or the Gen Z, as we spoke about it, these days, I guess being in the pharma or the medtech industry is quite similar, I think, to all other industries. It's just that in our particular trade, I think integrity plays an important part because it's a very highly regulated industry, be it pharma or medtech. And for those in the pharma industry, I do have a lot of employees previously from pharma as well. I think medtech is rather new in Singapore or in Southeast Asia. So more or less, you'll be seeing kind of a cross-industry kind of transferable skill set because it's in the regulatory framework. But from a leadership style perspective, I would say simply as a form of transformative leadership style in the current era is because it's a lot more about coaching, guidance. It's a little about servant leadership, but more towards having some level of domain knowledge as well as being able to coach and serve whoever is reporting to you. I think that is the kind of leadership style that will work in the current era. No longer is relevant to boss people around because I think Singapore has enjoyed a very low unemployment rate, and it's very easy to just find another high-paying job out there in the market, be it in the medical or the pharma or other industry in the market. Hence, I guess, as what Terry has correctly pointed out, in the second level, if I could remember correctly, you must build a relationship or a very close friendship with your subordinates, with your employees, with your colleagues, etc. Hence, I would say somewhat servant leadership with a mixture of transformative, in a sense, coaching as well as looking forward, what is the latest trend, and going forward, how does the company or how does the team as a whole going to progress in the next couple of years. You always have to portray a future to the employees, and that is the kind of leadership I think is much appreciated in the current era, and especially so in the pharma or in the medtech industry.
Thank you, Alan, for that share on how leadership plays out in the pharma industry. Just a question is like, so like since in the startup scene, do you expect, is it possible or is it likely for someone to go in the startup scene and just be a good leader? Or do you think it's really based on experience, based on what he or she been through that develops his leadership skills?
Well, these days, there are startup founders freshly out from school. There are startup founders like myself, which is above 40. Of course, in the medical industry or in the pharma industry, I believe so. That generally would, given the statistics, those above 45 would have a better chance of succeeding at the end of the year, at the time of the runway. For fresh graduate or for people who are younger, preferably join the industry, learn some skill set, learn about the domain knowledge, and best of all, join a startup or a smaller organization whereby you can learn directly from the founders or the C-suite. Because in a much larger organization, it probably takes you 10 years or at least 15 if you are excellent to climb the corporate ladder, to be able to learn the 5 level of leadership style. But from a startup perspective, immediately if you follow the CEO, generally you will see or having experience the kind of leadership style at a very, I would say, manageable level, not in the thousands of people level, but probably in the 20s, 30s, or 50 headcounts, depending on how big the startup or the small enterprise that you're joining.
Thank you for that sharing. Okay, so I think Alan mentions a lot about learning, about on the go as well. So maybe before we move on to the next speaker, just want to let everyone know again that if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat or share it verbally. But in the meantime, maybe we can do a poll on our demographics of participants here today, because we see that there's about 20 of us here now. So maybe you all can share where do you all come from? Is it Poly, Uni, JC? Which year in particular actually? And that will allow the speakers to actually gauge the demographics of the people here today. So, okay, so I'll leave on the poll for about 15 more seconds. In the meantime, you all can use this time to think of questions, think through the answers that Terry and Alan has given so far. And that any parts you need further clarification on, any questions that you have personally that you believe what they share actually is clearly relevant to it. So if you let us know. And okay, so I'll end the poll. Okay, so I end the poll now. So it's quite interesting that we have a clear mixture of participants for those of you who actually tried the poll. So about there are 3 of you who are for more than 5 years of work experience, and equal number of people for the rest. Okay, so there's a lot many students, 4 out of 9 students here today. Okay, it's quite interesting. Yeah, so far all the polls that I did for this event has never gotten this ratio before, but it's interesting to know there's quite a clear mix. So yeah, so I think with that being said, that means that more of you should be able to ask questions, because I think there's such a wide range. You all should know what's best for you. If you feel that certain concepts here may not be relevant to you, feel free to share it. Then we can know how to tweak it. The speakers can know how to tweak it to better suit your needs. Thank you. So moving on, so going back to the point about Alan made about learning. So I just wanted to we ask Yao Min, who has a lot of experience on the important. No, I think we all know that there's a lot of value in upgrading ourselves and reading up on the latest happenings, but sometimes there are just too much news, too much resources, too much guidelines out there. So how do we actually deal and handle with that overload of information?
Hello, welcome everyone to this training. I'm Yao Min from J Corporate Advisory. First and foremost, I hope that you all had a great work week for today. I think more importantly, in terms of learning, I can say myself, we shouldn't say that you are a poly grad, a university grad, a master's grad, or PhD grad. Think about that, because the thing is that you can take your poly qualification, and after which you go out and work. Subsequently, couple of years of working experience, you'll go to university. Couple of year working experience, you'll go to do your masters, and so on and so forth. A lot of people have always said learning does not stop and after you get your degree. No, I have no in maybe myself as an accountant in accountancy, and after which when they retire, they've gotten an arts degree and they did a degree in, interestingly, history. So some may wonder, hey, what has an accountant got to do with history? This client of mine, customer of mine, the client, he's an accountant by training, chartered accountant. What happened is that he said, I've always wanted to be an historian, to work in a museum. But at that point in time, your parents will tell you, son, it's either you become doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, one of these professions. Okay, I hope that everyone here, I'm not making any rules here, but more into you about. But he said, I've always wanted to be a historian. I wanted to work in a museum. So what happened is that after he has retired at 65 years old, he took a matured university degree, you know, those open university degrees, and say, all right, I'll take an anthropologist, historian type of thing. And he finally worked in the museum. Okay, this probably, I would say, I haven't told you which country it is. This country is in the UK. He worked in the in the London Museum, okay, in the British Museum, I beg your pardon. So this was what happened. That was his second career. It's just like, maybe I bring that more to Singapore, is that the government has been promoting, yes, this is your first degree, but they have always encouraged you to improve yourself. They have opened Singapore, as previously called SIM, Singapore Institute of Management. That university, as they claim, as the government says, it's for matured students. And indeed, it's true that a lot of matured students have gone through the ranks of SUSS, because I'm also a trainer, I'm also a lecturer and a adjunct professor with SUSS, and I've trained these students. I can tell you that they are all eager, willing to learn at whatever age. My oldest, or more, I wouldn't use the word oldest because that probably will be not the correct word to use. Maybe the more senior students, probably 50 years old. They wanted to understand what I'm doing as an accountant, because they said, yes, I have never taken, I have always been either a lawyer or maybe a sociologist or what. But they say that, but the thing is that when they are doing the work, especially Alan, you are a startup, you are a startup entrepreneur. A lot of entrepreneurs probably would not be familiar with how finances work. I mean, of course, everyone is familiar with a balance sheet and a P&L, but a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, yes, they know how to read a balance sheet and an income statement for profit and loss, but the issue is how to prepare one. How does the numbers flow from one to the other? That's where the intricacies of things may not be familiar. So they've said, okay, I'll take a master's. I'll take a master's of practicing professional accounting, and they came to SUSS. Previously, prior to SUSS, there were a lot of other avenues to do professional accounting. There's now the Chartered Accountants course, but those are really professional courses for graduates out of university. Of course, I'm not here to say that please do not take a professional accounting course, but they rather not be a professional accountant, but they took a master's in accountancy. So that is at the age of maybe 40 or 50 years old, when they are at the peak of their career, because they may be concerned that, yes, I understand how to read the financial accounts, but in terms of how the numbers flow, I may not be familiar. So things like that may also be of concern to even entrepreneurs like yourself. Now, we talk about continuous learning. I myself am considered, maybe I would say, a continuous learner. My first degree was in accountancy. Okay, my master's degree, yes, I took an MBA like how the rest of the world probably would have done. I have done a master's in supply chain, which is basically logistics, right? And lately, wow, as an accountant, probably I got a bit bored with accountancy. I went to become a valuer, a corporate finance guy, a valuer. And I got my degree, I got my qualification in CVA, the Chartered Valuers and Appraiser of Singapore. And now I'm teaching students like yourselves as a valuation instructor with the CVA course of Singapore. So basically Institute of Valuation and Appraiser of Singapore. So if you think from that angle, a lot of you may think, oh, I'm an accountant, I cannot be a valuer. I'm an accountant, I cannot be a tax accountant. I cannot be a supply chain person. Actually, I'm in everything. If you put it in those manner of how I myself decide to branch out in all different variations of my work. You may say, yes, as a valuer, yes, you're a valuer, you understand accounts. But I have a lot of valuers who are not accountants. I think it is interesting that a lot of people in the banks who are valuers, who are CFAs, they are engineers. They are not accountants. So you think from that angle, why are these engineers joining investment bank, Barclays, Goldman Sachs, things like that? They are not accountants. Should I be an accountant? You may think, no, please do. Please go to other courses. Please be a pharmacist. Please enjoy us. Please be a musician. I have known a musician who graduated from the London School of Arts, part of University of London. He joined a Big Four in London and became a chartered accountant. And after which, he dropped chartered accountant, went back to the arts and was playing at East End, London. And he was a musician, continued to be a musician. He's got a chartered accountant, says, okay, I tried this. Now I think I go back to become a musician. So this is where I'm coming from. So there shouldn't be anything about not preventing you from learning other new trades. The world is continuously evolving. Innovation is continuously coming in. New technology is coming in. Now we talk about digital. Now we talk about NFTs. That may be the new economy, right? How are we going to account for such new economies? I'm an accountant. I'm sorry, I cannot give you an answer. Cryptocurrency, how do we account? No idea. I'll tell you, I have no idea. But it is something that once there is a way of accounting for this, I have to go through a course to understand how to account for it, how to value it. So I hope this will give the impression to you yourselves as participants why it's important to continuously have this learning opportunity throughout your lifetime. Now you are still young. 10 years later, there will be a different world. Another 10 years later, there will be a different world. Remember, lifespan is not 50 years old as was 100 years ago. Lifespan is 100 years. That's the average lifespan of those senior citizens in Singapore. Okay, so you may be learning at even 80 years old. Come on, don't say you have cancer. Cancer is even is not a killer now. I just realized I just spoke to a doctor of one of the government hospitals. They say cancer is not a killer. The killer is something that you cannot even believe. It's just accident, being silly by yourself. Cancer, it can be cured. So everyone will probably be living above 100 years old. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yao Ming. I think Yao Ming shared the perspective of the importance of learning, the importance that we should not be limited to thinking that, let's say, our degree or whatever decisions we make will affect us for the whole life, but we can easily maneuver to what we really believe in, that we should not just conform to certain self-imposed norms. So I think I also see a few questions in the chat, but I thought that what Yao Ming said is really relevant to us all, and maybe as a student, we may also face such questions. We don't know whether should we explore things outside of our curriculum. We should do things. What should we do? What should we study? And we may think that we only have resources called Google to find out our answers, but we don't know that there's another end called mentoring that we can actually look towards and that we can actually seek help from. So I think that I wish to just pass on the time to Daniel and to maybe just share on the importance of mentoring, on how do we find suitable mentors, when we have such questions to ask, and how do we get connected? How do we actually find people like Daniel, people like Terry, people like Alan, and people like Yao Min to help us along the way? So Daniel, if you may share. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Luis. Can you hear me clearly, by the way?
Yes.
Is it clear? Okay, thanks. And again, thanks for organizing the webinar, and thanks for everyone for signing on. To Terry's point about the 5 levels, I think those are something that all of us who are embarking in the working world will face. Particularly, if I look at the poll, right, about 60% of us here uh, will be starting work fairly soon, and there are 33% that are currently in the workforce. So to answer your question, I would recommend that a young person gets a mentor. And to the question of if I were to send a letter to myself 35 years ago, that's quite a long time ago. I'm a semi-retiree in case you're wondering. I would tell myself, my younger self, go get a mentor. Okay? The purpose of a mentor is to provide you with valuable insights from the journey that they have gone on before. They may or may not be in the same industry as you, but that is not something that would prevent the mentor, him or her, from providing you with valuable insights that he or she has learned along the way. And by sharing that insight with you, hopefully it prevents you from making the same kind of stumbles that this person has gone through in their life. Why does a mentor do that? The main reason is because they want to give back to society and they want to nurture the next generation that comes after them, because that is how they themselves leave behind a legacy. It is inevitable that all of us one day leave Earth. Coming from a semi-retiree point of view, I can tell you that the life journey does have a finite limit, right? Even though we can live to 100, there is a finite limit as well. So the legacy that we have is to leave behind the lessons that we have learned for the people that come after us, so that they can carry on and do the same for people that come after them. So that is mentoring and that is coaching to a certain extent. So what is mentoring? Mentoring is having for yourself a trusted advisor, someone who will tell you when you're doing something right and also when you're doing something not so right. The person who is willing to be honest with you. It is something in which it is a relationship that you build over time, and based on that relationship and the trust that is built, you feel comfortable enough to share with your mentor that this is a direction that I want to take. Is this something that you feel will work for me in my life? And the mentor can share his or her views with you. Yes, it will work based upon what we have discussed so far, or you may want to think about that, right? A mentor can also help you expand your network because each of us come from different networks. Personally, I've come from 4 industries. I came from aerospace, aircraft engine manufacturing and repair, to the oilfield services, to selling undercarriage for aircraft engineering, aircraft or aircrafts. And I've done sales in that regard. In that particular time when I did sales, I closed a deal worth 150 million. And you would think that, hey, Daniel, that's great. Why don't you continue in sales? But there I faced a challenge, knowing that the company was very pleased with my performance. They gave me a 3-week vacation, literally, to be with customers. And at the end of the 3-week vacation, when I came home and I opened the door of my house, my daughter, who was 3 at the time, cried when she saw me. Why? She could not recognize me. I was away from home for so long, so often, that it threatened to put me to alienate myself from my family. And therein, I had to make a decision. The decision is I let go of the job and went into a different industry. I went into financial services industry. And lo and behold, I stayed for 25 years. Now, why am I sharing this with you? To Yao Min's point, is that don't think that because you come from a particular industry, you're going to stay in there for life. You will meander along the way. You will go into different industries. To my younger self, I would say, go on and try. Do not be afraid to take on challenges that you think you can. Just do it. Like the Nike logo says, right? Just do it. You know? And like what Alan shared earlier, startups may be one area that you want to explore. It is an area in which where the company is small enough that you get the opportunity to do everything. So that when a company starts to grow, you grow along with the company. Why limit yourself? So in the last job I did before I left the company, I was coaching 22 young people. And what did I coach them on or mentor them on? I mentored them to be entrepreneurs. Let me change your mindset a little bit. When you go into work, who is paying who? The company is paying you, but what are they paying you for? They are paying you for the skill that you bring to the organization. In other words, you are an entrepreneur selling your personal skills for the benefit of the company to which you are working or you are serving. So if you come from that mindset and you are at work every day and you think like an entrepreneur, your mindset will be very different. You are not a digit. You are not a cog in the wheel. You are a business owner of your own abilities. You bring with you a different skill set. You bring with you your whole self. And that, I think, is something that a mentor will help you to bridge that gap. Okay? So I'm just going to park it there and throw the conversation back to Louise.
Thank you, thank you. I think that's a I think everyone else would have the same view that me. That's a very interesting perspective about how we can actually see ourselves as entrepreneur. I've never seen myself as an entrepreneur in the workforce. So yeah, so we are all like Ellen, I guess, all entrepreneurs. So
Yeah.
nice.
I definitely could share a little. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Yao Ming, for your sharing. As a disclaimer, let me just share a little about the startup scene, be it in the pharmaceutical or in the medical tech industry. Startup, in a word, it used to be, or entrepreneurship used to be a very kind of a dirty word, I would say, my language. 10 years ago, if you tell people say you're in entrepreneurship, people will tell you, say, crazy, why not I just join a bigger corporate industry? But these days, startup is in a very, very, very different scene. Grab, for example, right before they are listed, they are still considered a startup with more than 1,000 employees, generating huge revenue itself. Even my company at the current moment, we are around 7-8 years. We are still considered a startup, even though we have a valuation of about 100 million. So startup has a very various. It's probably you can start with 2-man, 5-man. Eventually, entrepreneurship or startup is meant to grow at an exponential growth rate. It's not linear. It's really exponential. You could rags to riches within 3 years. You could exit the company or could be listed in either Hong Kong Stock Exchange or Australian Stock Exchange or even Singapore Stock Exchange Catalyst for that example. Hence, never underestimate what the startup does. And from what just now Yao Ming mentioned, yes, I don't just understand balance sheet and statement and account. I taken my CFA for that example. So continuous learning is definitely important. But bearing in mind for all the undergrads or for all the graduates or for all the working adults, just my sharing to you is that if you are talking about qualification, certification, I work with multiple PhDs. There are tons of people with great qualification. It's very difficult to stand out. So I would say rather than going for paper chase, really understand what is necessary and what is your level of interest or where you really want to venture into. I took my CFA not because it's necessary, it's just because I'm really interested in the stock market. and of course how all the financial statement works. So I guess go with your passion. Always learn from what you really believe in, not simply just for work or just to get a better master or PhD qualification, because it doesn't work. I have PhD that are working in a total different industry. Like what Daniel mentioned, it's not just you in your entire life, you're not just going to work in a single industry. There potentially could be multiple industry that you go into in various phases of your life. So hence, I guess getting a mentor, like what Daniel and probably Terry would mention, is rather important. Mentor is something that I really wish that I would have in the early years in my career, because a mentor is just not about the subject matter expert. It's really about life skill guidance, telling you probably potentially what is right or what's wrong. Because I think one of the questions was being asked, how do we actually evaluate ourselves in what phase or status we are currently at? Is through feedback, references from your superior. Sometimes even between employees or between direct superiors, it's very hard to receive feedback. But having a mentor that is a little bit more neutral or independent probably gives you a different perspective of how you should react or at what level you are at. Probably if you speak to Terry, she will be able to tell you at level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which level you are at the current stage. But as a startup, like I mentioned, very quickly we are being pushed to the level 1. But in terms of what level of leadership skill I use, I would tell you all 5, depending on who I'm speaking to, which level, whether it's executive level, managerial level, or director level. I use different level of leadership skill with different employees. Hence, it's about not just about learning what are the tools out there, but the application of the tools and how you mix and match the tools to your benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, I think that's a good added layer to the Terry's mention about the 5 levels of leadership, which I think circulates back to the question on the chat, which I think is directed to Terry on the 5 levels of leadership. How can we, maybe without a mentor, let's say we don't have the fortune of having a mentor, how can we ourselves gauge what level are we at? And also another question, which is from David, about how can we, if assuming we want to hit level 5, how can we overcome supposedly challenges to reach that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question and the chance to answer. Relevant to the 5 levels, I will have to say Alan is absolutely correct that we all play dual roles. Whether as an entrepreneur, a startup, or even in an organization, when you talk to your boss, you are probably at level 1. When you're talking to your subordinates, you're probably at level 3. And you do have to deploy different styles. So how do you validate yourself? And I will tell you, I throw in another, I'm going to be 53 very soon. I will throw in another angle to it. What about your personal life? You're at home, your family. Where are you as a leader? To your spouse, to your children. And to me, the whole full circle, now that I look back, if I tell myself 25 years ago when I was 25, or there was a question like this, and it circles back to leadership, is leadership that important a measure of success? Is it that important? It is probably when you are 25. When I think Daniel and I are probably in the same category. He looks a lot younger than me, okay? I would say that success to me need not be a leader. The leader can be in all kinds of scenario that you're in, daily life, at work, or at home. The measure of leadership for me, is on the measure of success, is really about leading a balanced life. No extremes to work, no extremes to personal. I would say that where I shared previously that I was working for a Fortune 200. What is a Fortune 200? Simply put, for some of us, it's still in the JC, junior college kind of era right now. It is the top 200 most or richest companies, organizations in the New York Stock Exchange. You're talking about the Googles, the Amazons, the IBMs. So I was working for one of these organizations. To be exact, this organization I was in is ranked 140 something, always about there, up, down every quarter. I earned a lot of money. I was flying 80% of my time. At that time, I have 2 young ones. And I didn't have a life. I was a workhorse. I was 24/7 on call. I enjoyed the work. At that time, I was probably in my late 30s, early 40s. It gave the fulfillment. Now, when I look back, I salute myself. I wouldn't do it again. You give me the same amount of money, I'm not going to do it again. Because for me, at this stage now, the life success measure for me is leadership as a balanced leader across the whole spectrum of my life. Leadership towards, for example, right now, my most upcoming aspiration is my diving trip next week. I'm going to go on a live on board, is getting my golf back into swing, making sure I hit another hole in one. That to me at my stage. So, but you are still at the beginning of the curve, go for it. Don't think of all this yet. Just gain experience. And I would say this, there was this question about what would you say to yourself half your life ago? I would say exactly what Yamin and Alan said, and even Daniel said, go try. You will never know when you never know. I don't box it up. How did I become a managing director in a men's world? I was in the printing sector. I was with a European MNC. And I will tell you how I ended up was by default. They had no other choice because everybody else was politicking. I stayed neutral. It's very hard to stay neutral actually because people think that you're on the other camp. Office politics is also EQ. I just stayed neutral and I just shouldered on. I just kept at my craft. I just make sure I hit my numbers and deliver and try to just be a very balanced person. The politicians, they somehow left or they got headhunted. That was just by default, I was the only one left. No choice have to promote me. And of course, the opportunities come, you just capitalize on them. So I would say, yeah, just make sure you fail. And if you do, it's absolutely okay because you have to look at it the other way. You gain the experience and you know now what not to do as you shoulder on in life. Okay. So yes, answer back to this 5 levels. Depends on which age you are. If you're a junior college student, go for level 1. And then, so these slides which we will share with you, these are the pointers to look at. Situational leadership basically responds depending on the situation. I think a leader, in the end, a lot of affirmation, assurance, because your team members may not show it, but a lot of them are unsure or they need the extra confirmation. A leader is a lot of care, concern. So how do you validate yourself as a leader? What are the main problems you meet? I will tell you that being a leader is very lonely and thankless. And sometimes you don't feel validated yourself. So you have to be your own rah-rah team. And so sometimes it's, how do I do to rejuvenate myself or to regulate myself? I would tell you that I have been running for 20 years, not running away from work, but really running. I used to run at McRitchie for 10 over years. I will live in Bedok Reservoir. I drive to McRitchie because it's a better experience. And I remember there was a time in the European MNC where they wanted to post me to Bangkok to start the Thai office. And my decision not to go was because they didn't have a McRitchie in Thailand. But that was frivolous, but it's true because why a lot of my quiet time, the solutions came when I'm running. It can be any sport, anything that gives you that me time. It could be yoga, it could be sitting in front of a beach, whatever it works to. So the being a leader is you have to really care for the people. And if you feel that you don't have the attitude to care, you just want to deliver the number, you will find after that you're very lonely. You are you lunch with yourself most of the time because you really don't want to be lunching with naysayers and their negative energy seeping into you. I will tell you that when I was at the Fortune 200, I observed the successful leaders. China leader for the China region, I was particularly impressed with him. I still in contact with him. And he came from IBM background. I observed how he operates, and I learned through observation. I will tell you that there will, he has his alone time and he does the right things in balance. Okay. And I think big companies, they will promote the balanced managers, not the extreme managers. It's the ones that are balanced. So a lot of time spending caring for your team, very thankless, want you to groom them. And half the time, you actually need to groom you hope your boss remembers you. You just have to be the go-getter and you have to be the starter. It can be quite difficult for you. You just have to rah-rah yourself, find your me time, go and run, think of a solution. It usually comes to me when I go for my run. So I'm still running until now. I don't know whether that answers the question. Please, other speakers contribute, but I share with you, this is my secret to my success. Yeah. Okay, so yes, so to progress level 1 to level 2, and I tell you to go to the pinnacle level, which is level 5. So yes, there was this discussion about coaching and mentoring. I totally agree with mentoring. Back in the day, when I was in my 20s, mentoring was not even a buzzword. Somehow somebody found me mentor worthy and became my mentor. I didn't even understood that it was a mentoring process. I met the person in the industry regularly, and I will bounce off ideas, and he will even open networks so that I can get faster a result faster for my work performance. And I was in the business development in the sales side, so that really has helped me a lot. There's also a difference with coaching. I think mentoring is more industry focused, more job focused. Coaching is more soft skills, and I find that coaching nowadays is the buzzword. It's always good to speak to somebody neutral and bounce off ideas. And for all you know, most of the you have your own solution. You just have to bring it out. And sometimes it takes somebody to bring out and spotlight the blind spots for you to really look deeper than what you think it is. So yes, I would also think that there's a lot of coaching kind of arrangements out there that you can tap on. Okay. I hope, Louis, I answered the question.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing some notes. Okay. Yeah. May I check if anyone else has any questions with regards to the 5 levels from the leadership framework? If you all have, feel free to either type into the chat or say out verbally. Okay, wait 10 seconds for that. Okay. Thank you. So okay, so moving, I think because there are so many different, I hear a lot of industries, a lot of concepts, a lot of topics. So I think that this is also similar to what the idea of continuous learning, because there's so many things out there. You know, it's like I think some of the participants may feel like overwhelmed. They may think that there's so much to do. So I think maybe a question to Yao Ming is like, because let's say after you start work, after we end work, such as yourself, you know, how can we actually, or after studying, for those who are still studying, how can we actually have the energy? Because we know the importance of upgrading ourselves, for exploring to things beyond our degree, but how can we have the energy to just push through to the last few hours of the day before sleeping? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Louis. I take your point on the where do you see me in terms of finding my time, my energy in taking up another course, trying to enrich myself. Okay, I can tell you, I was during my early days as a young accountant, I was definitely a paper chaser. I tried to take masters, PCS comment from my partners, from my managers, who always said, "Hey, where you're going off, Yao Min?" I said, "Sorry, I'm going to maybe MDIS, example, or Kaplan, or whichever." Okay, so they were just asking, "Well, are you not joining us for Friday drinks?" Well, that's the initial stage. But I mean, now when I start to think back, I say, yes, very good. I've cleared off all my postgraduate degrees, masters or CFAs or postgraduate diplomas. But I think, Daniel, you mentioned one thing. During that period of time, I noticed one. When I went home, I have no time for my kids. Daniel, that was what you said. Your 3-year-old came back, cried. Same thing here. Okay, she was not 3 years old. She's probably a toddler. I mean, not a toddler. 1, 2 years old. Just kidding. She just stared at me with a big eye. Okay, she didn't cry, but she was staring at me in a big eye. Well, that really hurt me a lot. So because of that, I said, okay, now focus on your career. Forget about doing any diplomas. Of course, I can be selfish to say that now because I've got all my diplomas and I'm telling you now. But let's put it in another perspective. Don't be a paper chaser during your early days when you are starting a family. Sorry, I'm not doing social development unit. for anyone here, government propaganda. But what I'm saying is that at the right time, after setting up your family, sending your kids to school, enjoy the family life, right? When you get to a mid-career, maybe you have a bit of a mid-career crisis or something you want to enrich yourself, something you learn, maybe you can take the Kaplan course, the MDIS courses then. Because I can tell you now, whatever I learned in MBA, whatever I learned then, supply chain, is totally irrelevant 10 years later. You see, Terry has raised the 5 levels of leadership. During my days of learning MBA, there wasn't 5 levels of leadership. There were only 2, mechanistic and organic. Mechanistic means tekan, bully. Organic is empathy, show heart. So there were 2, now there are 5. And now even there's a latest one from Singapore government, servant leadership, right? So that mindset has all changed already. It all changed because of the values of the country, of the values of society. So where I'm coming from is that do not be a paper chaser, which I was, unfortunately, but well, you may say, but think from the perspective as when even I got my MBA 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I tell you my MBA is totally irrelevant now. That's the point I'm making. So look at the whole situation, look at the society, look at the requirements. You may have a better MBA by being a on-the-job training entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, you learn things differently from what they teach you on textbooks. Totally different. So that MBA may be better than an actual MBA. I hope that that is something, is a thought-provoking type of idea. Because at the end of the day, people don't judge you by the amount of papers that you have. You have your 5 Cs long time, 20 years ago. You have your 5 Cs. Nobody thinks about that now. People will look at you. Oh, you are Jack Ma of Alibaba. Wow. Well, he was a teacher, you know. He was an English teacher. He went off to US, became learn English, came back, taught. And after that, what happens? He thought about an idea. Maybe I should do a bit of eBay conversion to the Chinese version of Alibaba. Look what happened. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of probably not rushing into a lifelong learning, but at the appropriate point in time, if you think that it's time to enrich yourself, please do so. There are a lot of avenues in Singapore to do it. Again, as I mentioned, SUSS, all the other qualifications, and there may be new qualifications coming in, like crypto and NFT, which I mentioned just now. Maybe there will be a new qualification called chartered digital asset, something like that. I have no idea, but such qualifications may come in, and which may prove relevant to the society today. So I hope that that gives some thought-provoking mindset for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Yami, for sharing. I agree that in this society, we all may have the mindset that we just have to keep on upgrading ourselves. We don't really dedicate much time to our families, our friends, which I think if we look back in the long run, then maybe we were like so-called not wish to do that. So I think it's good for us to have make our own decisions based on our current circumstances. Do we think this is the right thing? Can we do it a bit later? What do you have to gain? What do you have to lose? So I think that's thank you for sharing that perspective. Yeah. So anyone else has any questions? You all feel free to write in the chat or can say up verbally. So I think one of the more common questions that I also have personally is like, I think there's some, as a poll showed, there are some of us in the workforce now today. So it's like, let's say from a perspective of let's say Ellen, how can an employee actually showcase their leadership skills to you? If that is something that you're looking out for, I think sometimes leadership is a very subtle skill. Do you actually actively look out for it, or how do you actually measure it? And do you actually use it to gauge a success of an employee? That's the question. Yeah.
I think being subject matter expert, doing your job well these days is given, because we are paid a particular salary to do your job, and you better jolly well do it well. I think leadership skill is something I would say rare, but it's easily identifiable, and it comes from different levels. I mean, I've seen very early, very young employees showing leadership skill at a very onset. I've also seen very senior individual showing a different way of managing people. In terms of people leadership, I guess everyone have their own style and preference. So don't be fixated about a certain way or traits that you have to portray. Sometimes kind of leadership has to be very assertive. And if you're not that kind of assertive person and you try to be assertive, it's going to be kind of funny in a certain way. So hence, I think make full use of your environment and understand and try to evolve how you react or interact with your colleagues and how you're going to portray your own leadership. And as I mentioned, I think leadership is rare, but is easily identifiable in that manner, so long as individual portray a few traits like taking initiative, showing responsibility, and of course, overall, a very good problem solver. All in all, this seems like just doing your job, but doing your job and really having that initiative and finding problems to solve or finding good solutions sometimes is very much appreciated. And as top leadership, top in your own company also, it's easy to identify that particular individual shown a lot of interest in his or her work, but it's not just here to clock in and clock out on a daily basis. Hence, for individual, I guess portraying that you are really interested in what you are working on, that really helps us or help your superiors to identify your leadership skills.
Can I add on as well? I think for my the last few years, the last 2-3 years has been very humbling for me in terms of leadership, because you're really leading a virtual team. You hardly see each other, and you are mostly you have to find a way to engage with them. I will say as a leader, it's actually okay, even helpful, if you would show a human side. A leader doesn't have to be right all the time. I find that uh, being human, just say, hey, I think I made a mistake. I'm sorry. What I should have said was this. And just sometimes laughing at yourself, but without degrading yourself. Sometimes to showing the human side, you will find that people, your followers will get the buy-in. Then if you have to present the best self or insist that you're right when you're not really that right. So showing a very human side as a leader works. We are, after all, not in a battlefield. We're not going for war here in Singapore. It's really office, the corporate world. You will find that the people will open up to you more when they know that, hey, you've gone through it, and you are not so touchy about making mistakes for yourself, and you outright even say it sometimes an example. I think they will appreciate it. So show a human side. There's nothing wrong with it.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Ellen, for sharing your thoughts. I think, yes, I agree that there's sometimes a lot of leaders, they may just think of having a very forceful front. They just think that they want to push through and not be vulnerable. But I think it's quite paradoxical that actually if you show the vulnerable side there, I think it gets more support in that sense. I think it leads to more team cohesiveness. So thank you for sharing that thoughts. I think on the topic of team cohesiveness, maybe I can ask Daniel about, from a mentoring perspective, maybe you could share some, what if your potential mentee in the future actually asks you like questions such as, how do you actually sustain team morale and team motivation throughout a project? Like how would you, maybe you can pretend like in a 2-3 minutes short mentoring session as an example, to share how you engage with this mentee and what advice, how will you give the advice so that participants here today can actually know how is it like, how beneficial it actually is to get a mentor such as yourself. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. And I think that in today's context for teams, it's very important that the team has a common objective in terms of the vision that they want the team to achieve. How do they intend to serve, for example, as a team? And when they see themselves as a team, how do they articulate the words as a team? What words do they choose to describe themselves? That is something in which the team leader, if he's able to bring the message home, that they're able to share the same kind of passion, will lead that team together in the same direction that they ought to go. And sometimes teams get lost in the many things that they need to do. So the team leader needs to bring the team, reorientate the team back to say what was their original vision, what was the passion, they're there, why are they there to do what they need to do? And that I think will help you to re-establish your true north, as they say.
Thank you. So it's about focusing on and revisiting on what was the initial reason for the team mission. Okay.
Yeah, be it serving customers, be it doing a sale, be it whichever.
Is it possible for the direction to actually change, or do you think it's always fixed?
It can change in the sense that with today's world where there is a lot of merger and acquisitions, for example, or where there are industry challenges coming up, people can get lost, companies can get lost in their vision. And so it's very important for the team leader to be very mindful of changes that will affect and impact that and realign the team every now and then.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so about 7 more minutes left. If any of you have any other questions, you all feel free to ask. But in the meantime, I think one of the more practical question that we saw on the Google form was to Yao Min about because I sort of get the answer to it, but I'll ask it. Basically, it's about because there are paid courses out there, there are free courses out there, but is it always based on your experience all the courses you did in the past, which you mentioned it a lot, do you think it's always the case that by paid courses are better, that's why they are paid? Or do you think it's sometimes or how do we actually weigh out the benefits?
Okay, understand what you mean. Of course, there are the paid courses and the free courses out there. I would believe that the course provider, whether paid or free courses, will have gotten valuable inputs in respect of the speakers. I think any speakers who have been selected to sit in the panel. I'm just giving ourselves as examples because I'm not too sure whether this is a paid or free course. I'm just putting it as this is an example. They are quality speakers, or I should say, we are quality speakers whom have presented at this webinar. Okay, so as an organizer yourself, all courses which have been provided, I can tell you, I've spoken in both free and paid courses, and at that level, it is the person who is delivering the course, maybe free or paid in that manner, will have the pride in delivering the course to participants. Because I can tell you, we are not fly-by-night trainers. So likewise, I would believe that any course organizers would provide such courses at a very quality rate to anyone, any participants. Of course, I can also understand that there are certain course providers whom participants like yourself are concerned with. So may I suggest that, let's just say you do not know me. You could probably have done some sort of Google search or LinkedIn search on myself or any of my fellow panel colleagues here, and you would have seen the background, the CV, the profile of the speakers, and it's from there that you will be able to determine whether the trainer, the panelist, will be able to deliver materials or presentations which will be beneficial to you. So I think that will be a better way of gauging whether you should go for free or whether you should go for paid. Because I can also tell you, yes, the mindset is probably paid. Yes, they have paid the trainers, and therefore they will deliver a good presentation. Oh, it's free. Okay, they are just doing national service. I know a lot of people will think like that, but I believe that as trainers ourselves, as speakers ourselves, it is not about whether we are paid or not, but it's almost like delivering what is quality to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharing that. Yeah, I think to answer the question is that this course is free for all members, but that being said, I'm sure everyone agrees that all 4 panelists here are of extreme quality. So that clearly answers the point that this doesn't mean that if it's free means it's not good, but it's really about the speakers, about what values and what ideas they bring. So thank you for that. So
Can I add on some, Louis, to it?
Really.
So I also speak from the position of training because my current role, I am taking care of training and talent grooming for my organization. The organization has 700 staff, and part of the Kinderland Group, one of the brands, and my brand alone has 700 staff, of which 500 of them are educators. So they are preschool educators. So I speak from a position of training management, heading the organization. There's rather good WSQ courses that are funded. I think that the quality has been, Singapore has gone up a lot in the past years. It being funded means it's heavily discounted. Some of us who are working, they even give you absentee payroll. In the case of the sector I'm in, which is in preschool early childhood, it is even mandated. Educators must go through 35 hours individually every year, and is monitored by the government. The courses can be hard skills, soft skills, and I find that the WSQ courses are very good quality because they are regulated by the government, and they are also regulated by the evaluation, the training evaluation. So free courses as well. Totally agree with Yao Ming. Do check out the organization, the reviews, the speaker background. Yes, before you decide to spend the invest the time into the training. I find that most of the time the real life experiences is what people prefer over the textbook, because textbook everybody else can research and get the information. Like tonight, the sharing that we have, I think most of the speakers were really sharing from real life experiences, and I hope that it has been helpful for all of us. But just to add on is, yes, even the WS courses, SQ courses of the funded courses, they are as good as the expensive ones.
Thank you. I think we all will go and check it out, see about those courses, and hopefully learn some things from there as well. So I think we have almost come to the end. So I think before we end off, may I invite each of the speakers to maybe share a few lines of advice you will give to our participants today. It can be on any topic, anything that really make an impact on you as you look back on your career that you think you wish to impart it on to the next generation. Yeah, so maybe we can have Daniel to start first. Yeah.
Well, firstly, I'd like to encourage everyone here that since you're starting in your career journey is don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. Don't tell yourself that you are not worth it. Don't tell yourself that you can't do it. Try. Just go there. Just go out there and try.
Thank you. So just good mindset to have. Maybe I have maybe Alan, then Yao Ming, then Terry. Yeah.
I would say get out of your comfort zone. Always keep trying. So it summarized into such an extent, always go out to talk to people more senior than yourself. Don't always stay within your own lunch kaki or your own group of friends. Always make new and more senior friends who may be able to give you better or more qualified advice, because they have probably went through what you have going through at the current stage, like a mentor itself.
Thank you. Yao Ming?
Okay, thank you for both Daniel and Alan. I think I've not spoken too much about the pharmacies industry. But I would say in the pharmacist industry, I've just recently met a pharmacist who himself has set up two pharmacies chain in Malaysia. And these two pharmacies chain in Malaysia were acquired by Berjaya Group. And Berjaya Group, guess which pharmacies? Caring's. So how they acquire is this as just working in a hospital dispensing medicine, or working in a Guardian or which one, Unity Pharmacies in Singapore, just working as a pharmacist, okay? You are not. You can be your own businessman. You can be your own entrepreneur. You can probably even set up a Caring's group in Singapore and work with Berjaya. That's my key takeaway.
Thank you.
For me, I was just want to encourage everybody to focus on having fun. It's very hard to have fun at work. It's hard when you're a leader, thankless leader, people complaining, you can't produce a result, you're the leader, you are mandated. It's not fun anymore, but focus on having the fun. Easy said than done. If you keep at it, Steve Jobs is always, Elon Musk is always painful in the beginning. If you focus on having fun, upping your passion, I think all will be okay.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing. So we've come to almost the end of the session. So I wish to invite everyone to on your cameras if you wish to, because our one child will be helping us to take a screenshot of this event today. So maybe we can spend about 10 more. We give everyone 20 seconds to on your cameras. Yeah. So one child is helping us to take a photo.
Okay. On a count of 3. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay.
Thank you, Anshul.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you. So in the chat, I've also sent a feedback form. So the purpose of this feedback form is for us, which is ISPE, to actually gain a better understanding of how you felt that our event today went. So I'd be good if you can give the feedback. And also, if you complete this feedback form, you all are entitled to a lucky draw, which includes the price of a power bank. So unfortunately, this is only for those in Singapore, because we can't send it to, let's say, Japan. So for those who are in Singapore, your wish to collect the power bank, you all can fill out the feedback form. Then Daniel and Terry has also offered a mentoring session to at least one each for Daniel and Terry. About 45 to 1 hour one-on-one mentoring session where you all can personally ask any questions that you all might have. So I understand maybe some of you are a bit shy to ask here, and you all wish to have a private conversation with them. So you all may fill up the form, and there's a component about explaining why do you need a mentor and what do you hope to gain out of it. And the purpose of that is not to like drill you or anything, but it's really understand how best they can support you along the way, along this journey. So we will appreciate if you all can fill up the feedback form. And we'll spend about 15 minutes to keep this slide on screen. In the meantime, if any of you have any other questions, feel free to let us know. Yeah. So the winners of the mentoring and the power bank will be known latest by end of next week. So you'll receive either an email from me or a message, WhatsApp message, because I have each of everyone have your phone numbers. Yeah, the mentoring session will be virtual. So technically there's no boundary constraints based on geography. So yeah.
I want to add for some of us here, Daniel is a professional coach. His sessions are at least 250 and above for a session of half an hour. And I think, Daniel, you actually coach CEOs of big organizations. So it's definitely a treat to be given a chance to be coached by Daniel. Coach, mentor, there's different definitions, but yeah, generally mentoring is within the industry. Coaching is just need not be in the industry, can be coached too.
Thanks,
Thank
Terry.
you. Okay, thank you. So we should also say thank you to Terry once again for the sponsorship of the power bank. So I think it's very useful for us students or working professionals. We're always on the go and we need it definitely. Thank you for that.
It's a pleasure.
So this brings us to the end of the webinar today. We hope you all had a good time, and please stay tuned on our LinkedIn or Telegram to find out more about our final event, which will be held at the end of the year, which is more pharma focused, back to our origins. So thank you everyone for your time, and wish you all a good rest ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luis, for
Okay.
organizing.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Good night, guys. Stay safe.
Stay safe.